Welcome to episode 310 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon. If you're a wheat producer in the southern Great Plains and followed the development of wheat varieties, you more than likely have heard the name of our guest, Dr. Brett Carver. In this episode, we're talking about the 2024 wheat crop and why this may have been one of the best years for wheat research and variety development in Oklahoma's largest grain crop. Just a reminder, you will be able to find information about what we talked about in this episode and past episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
That was the year that taught me, for my research, I will be in a two-pass system with something generic going on at jointing and then something better, because I lost some massive yields that year. Dr.
Brian Arnell. And across from him is Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
This is a possibility because, you look at the disease triangle and now you have a host and you have the spores. So the only thing you need is the environment and you have head scab.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Let's kick off our conversation recorded on July 1st, 2024 with Oklahoma State University's wheat breeder and chair of the Oklahoma State Wheat Improvement Team, Dr. Brett Carver. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. So, Brian, I guess let's start off with an update on all things crops this time of year. It is the 1st of July. Most of the majority, dare we say, all of the wheat harvest is complete. And yep. How did things look in your neck of the woods of research?
Well, if you look at it, statewide harvest started with just a flurry because we were held out from getting in the field almost statewide with a bunch of rainfall, which was great for everything other than the wheat.
Right.
And then when it started, it just fell in. I remember we started on a Wednesday, looking at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We were looking at clouds all around us. Just it's going to rain. We just got to push. It didn't, and then it hasn't really since then, minus a couple of pockets, it seems like, since that first part. But wheat harvest was really interesting this year, really intriguing. So if we go out west where I started at Elk City, on-farm research out there, we were cutting 75 to 92 bushel in our plots. Farmers out there, the farmer I was on had quarters breaking 90. That was his lifetime record.
Wow.
Neighboring field a couple miles down the road might have been 40. So it was really just pocketed. We're talking about a bunch of those streaky rainfall events that came. And so there are in the pockets that received rainfall some amazing yields in western Oklahoma. Transition through the mid-south, we hit El Reno in that region, a lot of anywhere between a 40 to 60, depending on management, planting date, and variety into that realm. Hitting some decent yields, not great. They had a dry pocket. We then progressed the Stillwater up and through Ponca City up into Kansas area, that I-35 corridor. Really, if you look at north of Stillwater, kind of west and north of Stillwater, really Lahoma through Enid, Stillwater up into that area, there was a really dry period that fell about March through April. Really still harvested some decent wheat. We got into some 40 and 50 bushel in the Ponca City area in the Lahoma region and through that Kildare. And then once we got north, closer to the state line, yields were up, but we're usually up in this area around Caldwell, Kansas, that we can break 100 bushel pretty easily. And we were in the 70 and 80s up in there. Overall, test weight was kind of a little bit hit or miss. Is all about the rainfall and the temperatures there near heading. But I think as a whole that the wheat harvest statewide might have been a little bit better expected statewide. Or I think our guests will be able to
a
little bit more. Those rains really got summer crop establishment going. There was some amazing double crop soybeans put in north of Stillwater from Stillwater state line, and they've been catching a lot of rain. Mm-hmm. That little pockets, while they suffered for wheat, their double crops I think have currently some pretty good potential. I did notice last week hauling up to the Kansas line, hauling a combine up there, that corn was hit or miss. There's some stuff that filled out that looked really good, and there was some stuff that looked like it was on death's doorstep with burnt leaves all the way to the top.
Right.
Dr. Lofton?
Yeah, I mean, It's hot, man.
It is hot.
No, I mean, a lot of it, because of where the rain hit, it's when you got things in. I mean, if you got it in on time, I mean, there's a couple of years since I've been back in Oklahoma to where our recommendation for planting window is gray. These are the years that those windows are there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Corn that got planted on time looks great. Mm-hmm. Corn that's late looks abysmal. Soybeans that got planted on time look great. Soybeans that didn't are falling behind. So, I mean, this is the year why we have these planting windows. Will it translate to yield in the end? They might all die by the time we get to harvest. But I think on a lot of our corn that was March and April planted corn, this, at least for us here around Stillwater and the folks north of us, this last rain's finished the crop. I mean, the crop's made.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Test weights to be determined, but I mean, we're going to make grain. Yeah. It's got enough to push it all the way through. It might be a little bit lighter. We might lose some on the top end. We might have some shrunken tops, but I mean, the corn's made, and at least the corn that I've seen that was planted on time, that's past blister, that's already filling grain, it's
phenomenal.
I mean, we're talking well over 100 dry land corn. So, we're doing pretty good. Me and Brian were talking earlier. We have some of our stuff out east, that we got out of the field for so long we couldn't get in, and that corn might not make it to August.
Right.
We got irrigation, so we can drag it along, but at this point in time, it's got moisture to the top, and that's the thing we always, for the last 2 or 3 years, we're talking to guys at 6 inches or 8 inches, they're just dry. We have moisture to the surface. It's too hot and it's too windy, and it's the corn physically cannot get enough water to sustain it in these temperatures.
Which is kind of a switch up from our early spring. So we had a lot of cotton in the ground. I went really early up in the high plains, got hammered. All of the producers in the high plains that went in early is about the same thing. Put in cotton earliest window possible, hoping to stretch out that window, and then it just stayed cool and wet. Up there, Panhandles had more rain. Well, they had more rain in one day than they did all of 22.
Right.
But this
and
spring
21.
season, 21. This season has just been wet for that area. Yeah. Cool and wet is not what makes cotton grow fast. And so even in our Fort Cobb, which is later planted, there's been more cloudy days down there in the first couple of weeks. And so our cotton down there was not progressing as quickly as, say, cotton around Stillwater that had a little bit more light on it. But the cotton in the high northwest, it struggled this year. A lot of seedling blight issues, a lot of hail, wind, rain damage.
So after that 10 inches of rain at in the Goodwell area, how are crops handling that deluge of rain? Are they drowned out? Are they going to survive?
The rain's fine. What was a problem? So the rain, if they got out of the water, it looks okay. There's a lot of water rushing, so anything that's on rushing water laid over.
Yeah.
But what I don't think really hit the news as much as the rain was the hail core that went with it, and so the corn just got shattered. What wasn't underwater got hit. They say it's coming out of it quickly, corn. I mean, it's got heat now, it's got water, and so it's starting to move, and it will recover if it didn't get laid over.
Right. Now back to the wheat year. Every year in January and February, folks are making those decisions for those applications. Was 24 a good year for that investment in nitrogen in those inputs in that time frame?
24 in terms of top dress nitrogen, especially in the regions that hit it. We had some phenomenal response to top dress, and fungicide was critical this last year in many areas. The strap rust and rust came through, and I know some of the stuff that we've done with TAPS, which is that producer competition.
Right.
The fungicide added about 10 bushel to everything versus no fungicide on our standard checks. And so I don't know what Dr. Silva and Amanda's got coming out. We'll have her on before too long.
Right.
But I know in our stuff, fungicide was a value, especially in those sensitive varieties. Our guest today is probably one of the best to answer that. We have Dr. Brett Carver on, Oklahoma State wheat breeder, along with a whole lot of other titles, professor and such. But for us, he's the guru of wheat. And so, Brett, what did you see across your wheat this year?
A myriad of things, just a myriad. I was a little bit worried, in the wintertime. Of course, who wasn't? But, and then all of a sudden here came, like you mentioned, stripe rust. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I was shocked. When I first walked out into the field, I think I tweeted this. I think I did. It was on Easter weekend. So maybe I didn't because I didn't want to bother anybody. But golly, it was just so shocking to see that kind of infection. I mean, I've been looking at stripe rust since 2001. I think that was my first year. 2002 was a bad year.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll never forget.
I remember that.
Paul Jackson let me know what he thought about his sensitive variety that year. We have been breeding for it,
Yeah.
But anyway, we've been breeding for it since. And I have not seen that level of infection at that early of a time point in the development of the crop. This was at Tipton. I thought, I was going to go right to the epicenter. And sure enough, I did. I didn't make it to Altus. It was just too much to look at Tipton. But I remember telling people that this is the worst I've ever seen it this early. So to hear these yields, coming out of the field this spring, somebody must have put some fungicide out.
Yeah.
If they didn't, they probably didn't take advantage of what, even if a variety is resistant, what we call resistant, there was probably a benefit to be had so that plant did not have to pay the price to protect itself. There is a metabolic cost to that. Normally we don't have to talk about that, but this year I think we do in terms of stripe rust, sometimes in terms of leaf rust, and that wasn't so much a factor this year, but it was still there. What really surprised me, though, was as we went through the season down in the Southwest, how some of these sensitive varieties even failed to produce a spike. That I don't remember seeing that with that kind of consistency. And so I look back, and I'll always look back, as 24 is a pretty special year. I look back at years like 18 for the freeze and 15 for stripe rust, 12 for stripe rust. Those were monumental moments.
12 whooped me. I remember 12.
Yeah.
12 cratered my crop.
Yeah. And don't forget drought in 14.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Stripe rust in 10. So this will go down as in that group and maybe kind of headline that group, because not only did we just get this invasion of stripe rust, if you thought you made it through it, maybe you didn't apply a fungicide, you had still a green canopy. Well, here comes leaf rust.
Right.
Wow. What stripe rust left behind, leaf rust took care of.
Yeah.
And there were many canopies just burned from the combination of those two. And don't forget about root rots.
Yeah.
Let's just throw that in for the fun of it. It's not fun, but that was certainly there. So, I really take a lot of pride in breeding these varieties with disease resistance.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been breeding for a certain kind of resistance, and I really want to make sure this is understood, that this year did not help us too much. So for stripe rust, we're dealing mainly with the infection that occurs after heading. Well, that's an adult plant. The adult plant is better prepared to take an infection. Mm-hmm. And we breed for the resistance that enables that adult plant to take the infection. But when it comes before heading, our varieties are not equipped with the genetics. Now, you have to go to other parts of the country. Pacific Northwest is probably the best, where you can find what we call all-season resistance. It doesn't matter when stripe rust comes, you're going to have that protection before and after heading. So I really thought that, hey, we haven't been really breeding for it. I mean, every now and then we have a chance, maybe with some cooperator help. But I didn't think we had much all-season resistance. Well, no. What I found in Tipton was, okay, we have it, and we never had a chance to find it. So this was another one of those years where, oh, man, what a gift it was. I know it was a pain.
Yeah.
But it was a gift.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, that need for all-season resistance, are we talking 3 or 4 times the last 20 years maybe? Maybe 5 at the most?
The last time was when Gallagher just took it on the chin. So that would have been early teens, maybe 15. That's when I knew Gallagher didn't have all-season resistance. That's how I found out the hard way. But no, we don't normally deal with it too much. But this was different. And okay, as a breeder, is this what we breed for now? I think even if we don't see it again, I think we have to have it. It's just that much deeper layer of genetics and genetic resistance.
It might have been that year. I couldn't remember if it was 12 or 15, but I just remember Ruby Lee at Chickasha.
Oh, yeah.
And I got that was the year that taught me, for my research, I will be in a 2-pass system with something generic going on at jointing, and then something better, because I lost some massive yields that year.
I lost a lot of pride.
to a simple-minded non-wheat person, so because I know canola has seedling and reproductive blackleg resistance. So like, what is the metabolic difference between a full season and a just a reproductive resistance to stripe rust?
Boy, that's a tough question. I'm not sure. You really need Dr. Allen to answer the metabolic basis for that, but the genetics is very different.
Very different.
Yeah, I take that back. If you do have all season genetic resistance, of course that's going to help you in the adult plant. But I would want to stack that on with some adult plant resistance, which usually is a temperature related mechanism of resistance. In other words, you need to have a certain level of temperature, high temperature, to get that resistance going in the plant. So there's a temperature sensitivity that doesn't rule the mechanism of resistance in an all-season resistance type. But that's a good reason to have Miriam on here. Yeah, good question though.
Does a year like this shift your plan a lot, or is it just at a wrinkle when you look at your plans?
It's a planned wrinkle.
Okay.
We count on something like this to help us right the ship. And if we don't have this, we're just kind of meandering across the ocean and hope we end up in the right place. I don't like to do it that way. I want to have this kind of pressure on the breeding program, because it can really flip it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, normally we're looking at maybe advancing 40% of a nursery to go in the next year. This year will be 10%.
Wow.
But you got to do that without making your breeding program look like a utility pole. You still have to have that diversity, but you want it to where you do not have to, if you get in trouble, have to count on a fungicide.
I think that's the most fascinating thing when we run all the variety trials, and I call all the companies and I tell them like what happened in the panhandle. I'm like, your stuff went through about 8 inches of water. All of it got water stood in it, and all this and all that. And I'm like, I apologize. And they're like, no, it's great. I want that. We need that, because you don't get that all the time, and it really shows what your varieties are capable of in these weird, really high stress situations that I'm sure breeders love that. Us as agronomists, that terrifies me, because I like pretty fields, but as as somebody hoping to advance the genetics, it's good to have a year that has chock full of charcoal rot, or fusarium just runs wild, because it really helps you get a lot more information than a good year.
I hope we get back to fusarium in just a minute. That thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, you're right, exactly. I mean, you want to beat this program up so that it can take whatever's thrown at it, because every year is different. There's no 2 years. I can't think back to a year like this. Maybe 21, but we didn't have the drought stress in 21 leading up to that. That's another marvelous thing about this year, is start out so dry. How can you start out that dry and then end up with a disease year that's more of a wet year?
Right.
I had it all in 1 year, and man, I'll take it.
So from a science standpoint, this was a perfect year.
Yeah, this is more than perfect.
More than perfect.
Yeah. This is what you live for.
Yeah.
without the farmer, taking the brunt of it.
Yeah. When you wanted to go back and touch on fusarium again, what did you see in there?
Well, I didn't see much fusarium until I went up to Manhattan this spring. I have an unbelievable nursery up there breeding for head scab resistance. I mean, it's just dedicated to that specific disease. And Alan Fritz, my counterpart at Manhattan, K-State, showed me the nursery that they operate. And we've been, putting our germplasm in that nursery, so we have an idea of just how bad we are.
Right.
And I've learned my lesson, and we're trying to correct that. But that's a pretty fascinating tour for me. So I just wonder, with all the corn now, are we following much of that corn with wheat? And if we are we running into a fusarium prone situation? I ask that because what timing? We just released a scab resistant line. Haven't named it officially. We've named it several times, but not officially.
Right.
I think I have one now. I'm going to probably go back to my desk after this and write a letter to USDA for permission to name it like I want to. But that is really a good scab resistant line. It's not very good for stripe rust. So when you have fusarium, I would think you still need a fungicide. Just to have that extra layer of protection in addition to the genetics. But I'm just wondering, are we planning for the future in the right way by having this kind of priority? Because it's very different for OSU.
Mm-hmm.
I think having that one up in Manhattan it makes sense because that's where the corn is.
Yeah.
The little Midwest up there in the Little Apple.
Yeah.
But it's a discussion we have with all growers that are going no-till wheat behind corn and sorghum for that matter. Fusarium is, if you had fusarium, which we almost always have fusarium in our corn and sorghum somewhere. If you have it, just be careful because this is a strong possibility. If you're not tilling the ground, this is a possibility because you look at the disease triangle and now you have a host and you have the spores. So the only thing you need is the environment and you have head scab. So and I think most people take that to heart because of when we've had bad head scab years, it's been bad. I remember the one time in Louisiana when it's the only big head scab year I've been a part of in wheat, but they were telling you can't even feed it to deer. This is too hot. You can't feed it to wildlife kind of thing. So dig a hole and put all your wheat in there and then bury it because it's too hot. And so I think years like that, growers remember those kind of things. So I think they really take that to heart. But it's one of those things, the more diversity you have in your crop rotations, the more this kind of stuff's gonna play a part.
Well, how much of that corn acreage is being followed with wheat, would you say?
I would say you get east of here, and that's the rotation.
Okay.
Because they're going to probably go corn, wheat, double crop beans into full season corn.
And then north on the irrigated stuff, we're seeing just north of Stillwater, we're seeing a lot more wheat following corn in that system because they're able to grow 100+ bushel wheat following a corn. But when you're already in that irrigated system, now you're more inclined to be spraying a fungicide at that shot. So it's kind of the need is that I'd call it that Blackwell North corn, dryland corn, wheat, and they will get a fair amount in that rotation there, I think.
Yeah, and you're seeing even from a sorghum or corn standpoint, especially guys that are going to graze the wheat, they're going more and more no-till because they want the fodder there to help with that wheat, from a grazing perspective. So there is, and I don't want to say that there's a huge percentage of the total acres that are doing that, but there's been an uptick in that since I've been here. Is more folks that would typically, back when I first got here, since you have so much time that you can till that ground and incorporate that residue because you don't want to deal with it, having your air seeder and drill go through. But now they're like, I want to take advantage of that from a grazing perspective. So there's not a giant leap, but there's been an uptick of folks that are going no-till wheat into corn or sorghum residue.
How often does the system play a role into how you determine a future variety? Or, I mean, in Southwest Oklahoma, they're going to have a whole different approach to a cropping system than they do in Northwest Oklahoma or even Northeast Oklahoma.
Well, gosh, I mean, of course, grazing.
Right.
That is a system that's ruled our program for a long time now. But when you're talking about residue, we tend to think about leaf spotters and wheat. We've emphasized that over the years. We just keep applying the pressure. And now we have a new leaf spotter that I think we had it all along. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
But it takes a different source of resistance to overcome it in wheat. That's the one that Miriam has identified as Septoria nodorum, not Septoria tritici. Then that we're directing our program right towards that. If we haven't already, we kind of do that anyway just by default.
Right.
But now we're applying more conscious selection for that. So yeah, I mean this is really important. What I want to do though is I want to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I don't want to be responding to something now that's been in the making for 10 years because it takes us 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say
to get ready for it. So I want to hear it, and that's why I'm asking about corn and do we really need to up our game on scab resistance? I'm going to probably anyway, but I can press the accelerator even harder if I need to.
I mean, I tell you, I don't know if we want to venture down this road or if I can just make a positive comment, but the
can be deleted later.
Yeah, there's that.
The more I talk to folks that are used to be continuous wheat and now are integrating other things, that short season wheat, has been. I don't want to say it's been a game changer yet, but it is set up to really change the way that growers think about rotations in Oklahoma, because that double crop soybean rotation has been so big for a lot of folks, and that really frees up some flexibility, either being able to go in late after maybe a late sorghum or even a cotton and go into double crop soybeans, or maybe coming out of a double crop and still being able to go into wheat. That's been a huge game changer. And I mean, if from a cropping systems and a non-wheat agronomist, that is where I see a lot of future in this state from the wheat breeding, because it looks good. We went up to the Rendell Farms for that field day, and Amanda's been testing that out, and to hear Brent go through that with promise, that's a hard guy to sell on something, and he was very much looking at it like, I'm going to have to start putting pencil to paper on this to see the viability of this. So it's something that I think has a lot of legs in these cropping systems and a lot of future.
It's funny you should have used that expression, because the wheat really does need legs in this case. It needs to run and run hard. Man, it's not been as easy as I thought it would be. But then it is the antithesis of what we normally do. Dual purpose wheat is just the opposite of what a short season wheat is. But Butler's Gold is still our go-to variety for that. I'd like to have some more options though. I thought I had one, the 666, not to be messing around with the devil or anything, but has some sprouting issues, but we haven't totally closed the door on it. But it's a good yielder in very short season. I might mention too, I think we might need to bring our planting date back a little bit. You look in the variety trials, I think maybe December is really pushing the envelope on our capability. Have you seen the results in the variety trials?
I hadn't got to look this year.
Of course, you can just go to the trial and see it. When Butler's Gold is planted, second week of December, first week of December, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Pretty tough environment, especially when we have our dry seasons like we have had. Okay, we're going to be in an El Nino or La Nina year. That matters tremendously.
And December's always dry anyway, so now you're combining a historically dry month with that late.
But I think even getting the flexibility of not losing so much on the top end on a November planted wheat.
That's where the power is. That November
still really
wheat.
Good. I know Amanda's really wanting to push it to December, but from a cropping system, I mean,
November.
Unless you're really late cotton, I'm out of the field, or I want to be out of the field by October. So
Okay.
I got some time.
that's-
That Thanksgiving rainfall, snow, ice, whatever comes, that can help it. And then if you go into the dry year and then come out the backside, then it gets Brian's nice short wheat that he likes. And I think that's where the value is in the cropping system perspective, is being able to go into mid to late November without losing that top end off the top.
Okay.
And still getting that straw to go into on the
straw.
back end. That's what the guys want it for. They're wanting it for that straw and that moisture conservation and that break with that straw. And so it still gives you that chance to get in November and get that straw coming in June harvest. And even being out earlier and dropping in a bean or now. I mean, we've been spending a lot of time looking at double crop corn this year.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
we'll
crossed.
see on that one. But,
it's going to work.
It's in the ground. So, but that opportunity on a double crop and getting more time.
Yeah, well, and that's what I wonder too as a breeder is where do I put my priority? Do I put it into yield in that system, a double crop system with wheat, or do I put it into maturity where the producer knows he or she can get out and put that second crop in or the summer crop in? Of course, the ideal world, you focus on both of them. But, I mean, to get that early maturity, that's pretty tough. That's a tough call, and that's why Butler's gold is so unusual. It's going to be hard to replicate that. I think we can bring in a new germplasm, but, that's been really our priority. The yield has been almost secondary, believe it or not. And I don't want to have that flipped around like a...
from a... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just saying from a cropping... Like, if I can get out the second week of June, that's okay. Even the flexibility on the front to me and being able to convince growers that they can go into a summer crop and then still be able to put that wheat in, because they like that wheat in that system. One, it's consistent,
Right.
Even in a bad year, 30 bushel wheats. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
In a good year, we can have these 80 bushel wheats, and that really helps the economics drive through that process. And then they can take a risk on a summer crop in a year like this because, and so if even if I'm getting out on time, but I've been able to kind of weave in a better system by kind of layering those risks, and that wheat, which is already a good flexible crop, just adds more flexibility by saying, hey, you can go 3 weeks later and you're not losing top end yield. Then you focus on yield, because even if I'm coming out mid-June, I'm coming out mid-June. If you get growers to come out the first week of June, I don't know many of them that'll just stop and say, I'm going to plant soybeans. No, they just are going to go on to their next wheat field. So I think if you can get that mid-November and then get the yields consistent, I don't even think it's, you need to get it, but it needs to be a good yielder, because they still need to make that money, because wheat's what provides that foundation and that cash flow even when summer crops might fail on the back end.
Got it.
So
me personally, that's just from
good
a
to
cropping
know.
System guy.
So I guess I was going to switch a little bit. My question was, with Butler's Gold, was it a happy accident? Were you really chasing that down, or a combination of the two?
No, I guess it was a happy accident. That's a good way to put it. It was an accident. Ended up with this variety that was planted in October, good yielding variety, good everything. But my gosh, it was finishing in mid-May. And I knew that we were waiting on everything else to finish in 2 weeks. It's not good for that kind of plant. I thought, okay, this has some potential here, but what does it fit? And so we really had to figure out, well, okay, we have the genetics. Now, how can the genetics fit to something that we haven't even thought about before? And that's, I don't know when the light came on in my mind, but I thought, okay, if it matures this early at a normal planting date, why not just push the planting date back? Well, when do we need to push the planting date back? That's how we, came about figuring out how we're going to use this thing. Because I knew we had to use it some way, but I knew we couldn't use it in a conventional way. But it was totally an accident.
Okay.
Now we need to do it by design.
Purposeful.
Yeah.
So, if we can move on. I mean, if you're
you
good.
Move on. Yeah. You're
So
the co-host, so you get as much power as I do.
One of the biggest things that I've heard in the last several years growers talking about is that late spring freeze.
Yeah.
And how they play around with maturity and varieties and planting dates and all that to manage and mitigate it against that. I mean, from a breeding standpoint, we talked about how this maturity of the wheat and getting it earlier, getting it, planting it later. I mean, what answers do we have from a breeding standpoint to really do that? Or are growers relying on planting date really where we have to manage and mitigate against that?
I don't think they have to totally rely on planting day, although that's a pretty good strategy, no doubt about it. I think we have pretty good diversity in what I call dormancy release in our varieties when they come out and party in the spring. You guys see us with those lawnmowers, and that's by design too. We were mowing the wheat in March much later than what First Holliston was saying we should have been.
Yeah.
And I just make that a real high priority. Is I want these varieties to go in north central Oklahoma now, so proportionally different elsewhere in the state. But in north central Oklahoma, I want them to go to March. I want them to get to March and then let the producer decide as far as when they start reproductive development. And, whether or not it's going to be grazed. I would still use that system, which is really a dual-purpose system. I would use that system to breed wheat for it if we didn't have cattle out there, because it kind of keeps a lid on trying to green up too early. And yeah, there's a yield advantage for that, but 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 years doesn't happen very often. I'm going to breed for the other 5 years.
Well, that actually brought up a question I've been thinking about. Do you have a dual purpose focused variety on the horizon, one that's really going to be designed for the cattle producer?
Ooh, Dave's getting the inside scoop here.
Hey, yeah. Let him answer. Let's see if we get an answer.
Well, we do, and we did. And I don't know.
In 2028,
He's played this game before, Dave.
No, I mean, we're right in the middle of this thought process.
Right.
I mean, right now, it's, when is it? I guess we're into July now.
How about that?
And I'm just buried in data. And part of the data I'm looking at is, well, we have these candidates.
Yeah.
They've been in the variety trials, and we're going to do something with them. Had a couple in there that were real good, I think, grazing type wheats. We call them our double stopless wheats.
Right.
Because they don't have the double stop clear field trait. I don't know. I don't think we have quite the adaptation and the yield ceiling in those I'd like to have. But, man, the grazability is right there. I don't know that that's enough.
Right.
To push something out.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah, but there's other options.
Yeah.
That the dual purpose system is really our mainstay. So we'll have options.
Well, I just wonder that because where our farm is, a guy a mile east of us, he grazes his wheat. A guy to the south of us always hays his, and I was just curious for that guy down the road that does push his wheat further than probably what he should. I didn't know if there would be a grazability option for wheat.
So you say what he should, and I think that's a really good statement to make. And I don't know. I think we need to have Dr. Silva in here.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say on this podcast, and she knows how I feel about this. I don't know that we're really educating producers like we should when it comes to first Holliston. I think that system really worked back in the day. But I think our genetics now is so diverse that I think we are calling it too soon.
Really?
And it's the system we're using to call it.
Yeah.
It's forcing us to call it too soon. And she has done some work with me to use our simulated grazed plots to monitor first Holliston. They're very different than what she has for the same varieties in the plots where we produced the first Holliston data.
Right.
And I think we're missing out on some really critical grazing time by calling it too soon. In other words, saying get the cattle off now.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been breeding for too. Yep. Let's take advantage of what we've been breeding for. So I think we might. It's really up to her, but I hope we see a change in the way we do that. This goes back to Gene Krenser's days. Animal scientist.
Horn.
Yeah. Well, he's in our department too, plant scientist. Golly. Anyway, they wanted to have a
Redfern.
Yes, that's another one.
All the names.
Keep saying names,
Keep
Brian.
coming up with them. Back then we needed a quick way of saying when is this crop at first hollow
Right.
stem.
Yeah.
So the idea was just take a section of the field that was planted early but wasn't grazed, and that's what we'll use because that gives us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Let's call it early so that it gives the producer time to get the cattle off. I think we need to be a little bit more precise with that timing because, again, we're calling it way too early. High cotton is a good example.
Right.
And it's you plant it out there early, you don't graze it, you let it just go to town. You're going to think, oh, we need to get the cattle off. No, when it's grazed, it holds back. And another even better example of that is uncharted.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's probably 2 weeks of grazing being missed. 2 weeks.
Wow.
Being missed because we're pulling cattle off too soon, that particular variety.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best time to be grazing.
Yeah, 14 days of grazing during peak growth.
In February and March,
man.
my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, and then you can count on the same yield. Oh, Larry Redmond.
Redmond. There we go. Texas. Yeah. He's a Texan now, so
That's right.
I discount everything that he. No.
What areas are you targeting for future varieties?
Always. We're going to target yield
Yeah.
and disease resistance.
Yeah.
Just know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more out there. I'm just working right now on a presentation for U.S. Wheat next week. Breeding harvested winter wheat beyond the fence. Let's go beyond the fence. Let's not look at harvested winter wheat like we've always looked at harvested winter wheat. As some of our customers in an international world would say, it's just, it's the blending wheat. It can be a good wheat. It can be used to fix a lot of problems. And that's kind of what we're doing with a variety called Paradox, Breadbox, Firebox, those ox wheats. That's a totally different gluten composition and therefore functionality. It's almost like, no, it is like hard-red spring wheat, but a hard-red winter wheat kernel. And now we're talking about something that has value. Because if we can grow a hard-red winter wheat that functions like a hard-red spring in terms of, how it's used in the bakery, there's value to all the pieces in that supply chain, going back to the producer especially. So that's really exciting. And, we've got the Paradox. And have you looked at the yield results for Paradox? Oh, my gosh. Top tier. You can breed quality in yield.
Right.
As long as the quality doesn't depend on the amount of protein. Right? If it's not so dependent on how much protein, it's just dependent on what kind of protein, the game is wide open. What you can do with that.
I had a conversation with, I'm trying to remember who it was, as you were saying that about the clean labeled wheat just a couple of days ago, talking about the ox wheats and coming out with that potential for a clean label bread. It was a fun conversation because it was consumer, non-ag, and it was a really interesting conversation because they were asking about, the label on a bag of bread. And it's like, well, she's working on that.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, we will be. Much more than we are now, but not taking away from, our bread and butter.
Right.
Which is, like I said, yield and disease resistance, and insects too. Another one I think we need to get right, and that's the fiber composition of wheat. I mean, there's in a whole kernel of wheat, there's 10 to 11% fiber. Well, you don't get that in a piece of white bread. You could, okay, you could with some breeding a higher fiber content in the milled flour, not so much in the pericarp or the bran. Because right now, the consumers say they're not going to eat any more whole wheat bread. 4% of our wheat is milled as whole wheat flour. That's not a whole
4%?
4%, that's it.
I would have thought it was a higher value than that.
I do too, but it's been stuck there. So consumers have told us, if you're going to deliver flour and wheat, or fiber and wheat, put it in the flour, the milled flour. And there already is fiber. It's just not a very high concentration. So that's very doable. There's several ways to do it. We won't go in all that sciencey stuff, but working with an organization called the Coalition for Grain Fiber, it's a nationwide effort to increase a certain kind of carbohydrate, not starch. It's a non-starch carbohydrate present in any grain, particularly wheat, and that becomes a source of dietary fiber. Another thing is you can change the starch. We haven't done it. And we started on this 10 years ago. So we're not stopping now.
Right.
Working with Leah Leanne to use markers to help us select for those genes. But I feel really, really confident that game's going to change, because I think if we're going to have the American consumer look at wheat in a different way than they look at it now, it's not going to come down to the gluten.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to what started our free fall in wheat consumption, and that was carbohydrates. Diets. Think of all the diets that have come along since early 2000. So we need to go back to the carbohydrate and do something with that to make it more fashionable and definitely more healthy.
Dr. Brett Carver, thank you so much for going on with us and giving us a look into the wheat crops that are currently in the field, but then also the future of the wheat from Oklahoma State University.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
And thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. If you'd like to join the next discussion, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Of course, our handle is Red Dirt Ag. We'd like to thank Dr. Brett Carver for joining us on this podcast. And if you get a chance, visit our website, reddirtagronomy.com, to find out more about our guests and any of the resources that we discussed today on the podcast. For Dr. Josh Lofton and Dr. Brian Ernell, I am Dave Deacon, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC 2024. And yes, all rights are reserved.